I came of age both personally and politically in what has come to be called the Vietnam era. It was that time in our nation's history when events and technological advances came face to face, allowing the horrific gravity of war to become more real to us than ever before. Broadcast nightly on the television news, the ravages of battles waged in the past 24 hours or so joined us right in our living rooms. We had been protected from it prior to that, and I'm not sure that that's ideal either, because a sheltered naivete does us no good in the long run. But there it was each night with the accompanying count of lives sacrificed. Just the American ones. We didn't hear about the other countries' losses as far as I can recall. Having never formally referred to myself as a pacifist, I figured it best to check the definition again to be sure. A pacifist is someone who believes that the use of war and violence are unjustifiable. According to one source, I am certain that I don't think they are viable solutions to any problems we have as individuals or as nation states. This is what Webster says it means. I have always believed also that one should be able to defend themselves against a violent attack, and I thought this would disqualify me. Turns out it doesn't. But the second entry in the dictionary mentions opposition to conflict, qualifying that with especially war. And I tend to think that some conflict is a positive thing if handled well, war not being an example of that. Perhaps I am more of a pacifist than I had originally deemed myself to be. We've come a long way since my youthful black and white TV encounters with war. Too far, some may say, as we are bombarded with media images on a constant basis if we choose to be, and nearly as often, even if we don't. Those early images and numbers left a mark on me that I can't deny. War was no longer something happening in a far-off place that we learned about in our history classes. It was real and vivid. Those were actual people I was seeing caught up in those scenes. Eerie screenshots into a hellish environment that seemed not to be serving as a solution to anything. The scenes we see today have reawakened the disturbance in my gut as I watch young Black men and women lose their lives in fear-filled violence wrought by some who are intended to serve the peace. Feelings of dread and a sense of helplessness mixed with compassion are elicited with each report as I pause before the TV I happen to be passing by and breathe in deeply, my eyes welling up with tears. Another mother's son or daughter gone from their embrace forever. My own mother's heart grieves alongside theirs. Daily accounts. To what end? I ask myself. To what end? Today is Mother's Day, celebrated each May on the second Sunday, a boon to the Hallmark card empire and restaurants offering brunch with mom in mind. Celebrations of mothers date back to the ancient Greeks and Romans who honored their mother goddesses, Rhea and Sibyl. In Europe, a Christian festival on the fourth Sunday in Lent where people returned to their mother church was celebrated, eventually becoming more secular in nature and giving way to a day to honor mothers with flowers and gifts. In 19th century America, Anne Reeves Jarvis is credited with the formation of Mother's Day work clubs to teach local women how to properly care for their children. These clubs later became a unifying force in a region of the country still divided over the Civil War. In 1868, Jarvis organized Mother's Friendship Day, at which mothers gathered with former Union and Confederate soldiers to promote reconciliation. Another precursor to Mother's Day came from the abolitionist and suffragette Julia Ward Howe. In 1870, Howe wrote the Mother's Day Proclamation, which we heard this morning, a call to action that asks mothers to unite in promoting world peace. In 1873, Howe campaigned for a Mother's Peace Day to be celebrated every June. So the original day here in the US was not about our moms so much as it was about the hearts and souls of mothers who were experiencing the loss of husbands and sons in war and who demanded a more peaceful means of answering disputes. The proclamation recognizes the mothers and children on both sides of the battle lines, citing a tenderness that exists, one for the other, regardless of nationality, rooted in the fact of motherhood. It calls for women everywhere to take counsel with each other, first to mourn together, and then to consider ways to bring a more peaceful existence to humanity. It was about the promotion of the great and general interests of peace. So I want to take a moment here to lift up the mothers and grandmothers in our midst. So if you are a great grandmother, I would ask you to please raise your hand so that we can acknowledge and thank you. And we're going to look through and call your names out as we see them. Are there great grandmothers with us today?
Thelma is a great grandmother.
Ah, congratulations, Thelma. Happy Mother's Day. So we're going to light this purple candle for the great grandmothers. And are there grandmothers in our midst? Please raise your hand so we can acknowledge and thank you. I see Sue Bauer and Joan Konopka.
Stephen Jackie.
Judy Reed, Gail Eldridge, Joan Caputo, Ann Shank, Sue Daly, Carol Wall, Barbara Blanchard, Mary Chestnut, Barbara Waters, Jane Eccles, Bonnie Bridges, Debbie Zaka. We are a room full of grandmothers.
Don't forget Thelma.
And Thelma gets all of these, right?
Yeah.
And me too. I'm a grandmother as well, of a wonderful little girl.
Finally, if you are a mother, be that a birth mother, a step or a foster mother, however you have come to be called a mother, please raise your hand so that we can acknowledge and thank you. So that's all the aforementioned. Is there anyone? Frank is a mother. Anyone who hasn't fit in one of those categories that we already did?
Elizabeth Dykins is a mother.
Elizabeth Dykins is a mother. Thank you, Elizabeth. Anyone who's calling in this morning need to be recognized? And of course, I am a mother. We mustn't forget that. We are grateful to all of you. We are grateful to all of you, the women in our lives, and some men as well, who taught us the ways of peace and planted in us a seed of hope for peaceful days to come. So Mother's Day can be tough for some of us, and I want to name that here. We have not all had the best of relationships with our moms. I certainly didn't, but I am grateful for the opportunity I had to reconcile those differences before she passed from this life. It is hard sometimes to do that. However, it's a valuable exercise in the long run. Parenting doesn't come with a user manual, and there are no prerequisites, no rules about having your own psychology in order, nothing about sobriety, self-esteem, or safety. Moms do the best they can with what they have. And if what they had was not so great, then it makes sense that parenting would be a rocky road for them. So if you are sitting out there with mixed emotions about this day, please know that you are not alone. Reach out to someone you trust if you need to. Peacemaking begins within our hearts and our homes and radiates most easily from us when we are ourselves at peace. So this idea of a flourishing peace came to me as I thought about the origins of Mother's Day, and when I read the phrase some time ago in the book A House for Hope by Rebecca Parker and John Burens. I like it more and more as I delve into the meaning a little deeper. Flourishing is about healthy and vigorous growth, especially so when it is grounded in a favorable environment. The peas in my garden exhibit this. Have I mentioned my peas before? They are a metaphor for so much, and I really talk about them a lot these days. They are several inches tall now, upright, reaching toward the sun, bright green, full seedlings. It is in part due to their environment. The soil temperature is perfect for peas, and these being new raised beds, it is good dirt, which we have enhanced with compost. It's not too warm out yet. They are getting plenty of water. We have created a habitat suited for their growth. The question arises then, what do we need to do in order to ensure a flourishing peace? What are the conditions necessary? What can we do right here to begin the process? To flourish also means to wave something around so as to attract attention to it. Hold it up high and point to it with words and actions. A community ministry colleague of mine in Boston is the executive director of an organization called Peace First. For 20 years, they have been promoting the idea that young people, given the opportunity and the tools, have the answers that we need to create a more peaceful world. He recently wrote a book, a workbook of sorts, for young people to explore peacemaking in situations that matter the most to them. Perhaps our children and youth might take a look at it. If you look on the website, you will see links to individual stories addressing things like gender, education, equality, racism, mental health awareness, and violence, to name a few. They share these stories with a certain amount of flourish, getting these amazing ideas out in the open and sparking more and more interest in the cause of peace, while empowering young people whose concepts of a more peaceful world offer solutions in real time and hope for the future. It is quite breathtaking. There are certain things common to cultures that subscribe to peace as a major tenet of their existence. It begins with their values, becomes primary in their interactions. They are intentional about carrying it forward into the next generation. Generally speaking, they also promote democratic processes or consensus-style decision-making. They believe in gender equity And they teach peace in word and in deed, disallowing violent behavior and practicing nonviolent conflict management. It is woven into the fabric of their societies, the warp upon which the weft of their existence crisscrosses back and forth. It doesn't just happen because they think it should. Their lives address the dream they hold. Knowing that violence begets violence, they focus on the idea that peace also begets peace. If we never follow through on that thought fully to this point, we will never arrive. Faith-based enclaves of peacefulness still exist today. Quakerism likely comes to mind here, but there are others. The emphasis is on cooperation, communication, and a disciplined sense of spirituality. It is not simply about living peacefully in one's own community. It is also about peace building outside of one's relatively comfortable circle of faith. This is the harder step, to be sure, especially in these times of increased division. It is easy to lose heart, to throw your hands up in the air and retreat to the safe confines of like-mindedness. We know ourselves to be social beings, inherently relational, and the fact is that humanity needs one another. It is likely the thing that has kept us from spiraling totally out of control. We need to make peace with our neighbors in order to survive. We need to make peace with our planet in order to survive. I hear our Unitarian Universalist tenets echoed in some of what peaceful culture grounds itself in: respect for our interconnectedness, democratic means of problem solving, equity in relationships, our penchant for justice making. That Crosby, Stills, and Nash song is playing in my head, and anytime I can work an old protest song into a sermon, you know I'm a happy woman. We need a code that we can live by, need to teach our children well, so that slowly over time, the hell of war and violence will go by the wayside. Feed them on your dreams, it says, because ultimately the stuff that is truly important to you will take root in them also. They will choose the peace we teach. And these are the things I come to most frequently when I think about peace, about peacemaking, about peace building. First, that it must be primary in terms of our list of purposes in life, and authentically so if it's to make a difference. We need to survey our values, see if we find peace among them, and place it at the fore of our mode of operation. Second, it is the idea of teaching peace as a means of ensuring its development and its thriving. It happens in obvious and in subtle ways. When we teach our young ones to resolve differences with the give and take of real dialogue, we are teaching peace. When we respond to violence we witness in small acts of microaggression and larger scale acts of global violence, by offering viable alternatives to relating to one another in our human family, we are teaching peace. When we come together in community for work and for play, cooperatively and collaboratively, we are teaching peace. When we care for our environment, we are teaching peace. On this day celebrating mothers, may we also celebrate the original intentions of its founders. May we seek together ways to create an environment where a flourishing peace can well up in our midst. And may we do so with great flourish, boldly proclaiming and living into the peace we believe to be so necessary to the common good. Blessed be, and happy Mother's Day.
We've come to the time in our service when we ask for your contributions to help sustain and grow our meeting house.